Greetings, this is the man who pretends to be Charles Darwin, and I am doing a whole series of videos about forest plants near Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I've just done two previous videos, one about the sensitive plant and one about red young leaves, in that case on the redbud tree. And here I've stopped just a few feet further down the trail to look at this beautiful plant. Isn't it beautiful? Well, this is in the Phytolaccaceae, Phytolacca americana pokeweed. And even though it looks beautiful and that you'd want to take a big bite of the leaves, don't do that because it's got oxalic acid crystals in it. And while perhaps not deadly, it might do kidney damage. Anyway, the point is that this is not a plant that you want to eat. However, it is nice and green and full of vitamins in the early spring, and pioneers to this part of the world needed to have their greens. Now, they didn't know about vitamins, but they knew they needed to have their greens. So what they would do is they would pick these leaves right here. I can touch them because it's not a kind of poison that affects the skin, but they would pick these young leaves and then they would boil them and change the water a couple of times, and eventually they would have something that they could eat more or less like spinach. Now, how did they figure this out? You might think, well, they recognized pokeweed from Europe and Asia, and so that they would have known, oh, this is pokeweed. We already know how to prepare this plant so that we can eat it. But actually, that was not the case, because Phytolaccaceae, and I think at least the genus Phytolacca, is found only in North America and maybe in a couple of places elsewhere in the world, but the Europeans did not know about this. They didn't know much about anything regarding natural plants when they came over, because most of them who came over were the urban poor. And so in order to be able to survive here, they had to learn from the Native Americans. And this is one of many ways in which Native Americans kept the pioneers who eventually almost exterminated them alive. Wasn't that nice of them? And so this is a perfect example of it. The country folk here in Oklahoma know how to prepare the young leaves of pokeweed in order to eat it in the spring. They don't have to now, but some of them really still like to do that. But they got that from the Native Americans. Now, it's amazing the Native Americans had that, because how did the Native Americans figure it out? They did not have this plant when they came from Siberia. And within the course of about 1,000 years or so, they moved all the way from Alaska down to the tip of Tierra del Fuego. And they lived in lots of different environments. And that means they had to have very high technology and be very intelligent to be able to figure out how to survive in each of these environments, each of them with different plants. So the ones that came over from the land bridge, Beringian land bridge, did not know anything about this plant. They had to figure it out. Presumably they did some experiments by eating just a little bit of each kind of plant and each kind of mushroom, also to see which ones made them sick. And if it made them sick, they stayed away from it, or else they figured out some other way to use it, as in boiling the young leaves. And so the pioneers, the white European and later American pioneers, depended upon the knowledge from the Native Americans to keep them alive. But it was the Native Americans who used the scientific method, try a little bit and see what happens, in order to be able to survive in what to them was a new land, and what really was a new land. This is the man who pretends to be Charles Darwin. Tally ho and amen.